Sometime around 66 million years ago, an asteroid the size of Manhattan struck the Earth smack dab in what we call now the Gulf of Mexico. And exterminatus the Tyrannosaurus it did, with the meteorites being thrown back into the atmosphere and raining back down, killing the rest of the dinosaurs. Also, there was the atmosphere being clogged up, causing about 50% of the species at the time to die from either global cooling or poisoning, that being both the fauna and flora. And yeah, it was a massive extinction event, or at least that is one of the theories that we've had. This is the one that we lean on the most, and it is awesome because there's a lot of it that makes sense. Yet still, we have some missing plot holes, which I suppose is what Kurzgesagt is going to be talking about today. How's it going, folks? Jack here with another reaction. Welcome back to the Chill Zone, or if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Chill Zone. I am a physics graduate, and while granted I deal with astrophysics, I have read a little bit on geology because I sort of wanted to take up the course at some point because some of my fellow students took it and said that it was basically like playing with rocks. Now, I'm not sure if that is literally what it was, but it is quite interesting because, you know, there's a lot of overlap through the things that we learned in different courses that allows us to paint a better picture of the world. But let us see what Kurzgesagt has in store for us today with how the dinosaurs actually died.
A ruthless murder was committed. Someone killed the dinosaurs, and we have the murderer. Witnesses say that an Everest-sized asteroid hit Earth, devastated the planet, and caused a mass extinction. A simple, fascinating, and convincing explanation. Or is it? In the last few years, new evidence has reinvigorated an older theory pointing at a second suspect. A very slow and liquid asteroid 1,000 times bigger hitting Earth on the opposite side of the planet. Like the true crime channel we are, let's look at the new evidence and tell a different story that could change everything we thought we knew. The last days of a kingdom. 66 million years ago, Earth was barely recognizable. It was the last days of the Cretaceous, one of the hottest periods in Earth's history, and much more humid. Lush jungles and woodlands covered much of the planet. Even the polar regions were home to forests of prehistoric pines and ferns. Amazing ecosystems that were robust enough to survive the many months of darkness during the polar night. Oversized animals were everywhere. Pterosaurs filled the skies. Marine lizards and long-necked monsters up to 15 meters swam in the oceans. And on land, basically everything larger than 1 meter was a dinosaur.
Yeah, archaeological hypotheses were the things that hinted to what actually happened at the time. The extinction event in question is what is colloquially called the KPG. Yes, the Cretaceous Paleogene Extinction Event. The Paleogene is, of course, the era that is dominated by mammals, the one coming after this one. I think that some of the proof that points towards this are the changes in marine fossils before and after the event happened. The things that basically inspired some of your favorite Pokemons, beside that one that looks like barnacles, because barnacles are disgusting.
One of the most successful animals ever to walk Earth, dominating the world for more than 150 million years. And then they were murdered. All these majestic creatures vanished in a split second of geological time. Why? Yes, it is true that around that time a big asteroid hit Earth. But was this actually what killed the dinosaurs? Or did it arrive just in time to get all the blame?
Wow.
Because according to some recent science, just before the asteroid struck, an ancient nightmare, older than even the dinosaurs, decided to destroy the world. Let's look at how it might have done it.
Ooh.
The beast slowly awakens.
I think that I might know what he's hinting to, but as a little bit of clarification with the whole thing of the asteroid. The fossil records aside, especially for the ones that are found in the oceans, we also have such things as the different soil compositions that we can find that often are very much separated by one thin line of, well, it's not that thin, but one line of iridium. Now, iridium is a somewhat also naturally occurring metal. It's actually, if I remember correctly, the thing that was used in the Avenger movie to like create a portal to the Chitaris when the one professor was kidnapped by Loki. Yeah, it was iridium. Atomic number 77, because osmium, iridium, and platinum are the ones that follow each other. Heavy metals. Regardless, that's the point. Iridium is something that is found naturally occurring, but very rare, but it is found in Mars, in, of course, asteroid. So this was a hypothesis that was made by Alvarez and Sons after their own observations and theories made of a possible asteroid having struck the Earth, because observations of such things have been made all around the world, but most of the iridium especially sites were found around North America, and especially where they were done like in quite sequential sightings. And so thanks to the improvement in like satellite imagery around the 90s, I want to say 91, that we actually found the crater in question. That was the one thing that was lacking to make his hypothesis, or their hypothesis, solid. This was of course found in the aforementioned place of Mexico, off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the city. I want to say start with a C. It's a bit of a strange name, but yeah, that's basically where they located it.
The ancient continents almost resembled the world of today, but not quite. India was still a continent-sized tropical island full of lush rainforests and exotic life on its way to smash into Asia. But this paradise also hosted something else. The Deccan Traps, a volcanic region 1,000 kilometers wide and about to come to life in a dramatic fashion. The apocalypse began quietly and silently. About 800,000 years before the impact, the Deccan Traps began to exhale about 10 million tons of CO2 and sulfur dioxide each year, which in the grand scheme of things was not that much, so for a long time no one noticed. The problem was, these emissions wouldn't stop. For 500,000 years, they started to dangerously pile up in the atmosphere. About 300,000 years before the asteroid, the Deccan Traps started to vomit lava. This was nothing like a normal eruption. It was a lava flood. Imagine a landscape with volcanoes stretching beyond the horizon. They were constantly active, releasing a steady flow of massive amounts of poison and lava, interrupted by much more violent and deadly eruptions. The lush paradise of India was the first victim as gigantic clouds spread toxic fumes and poisoned the coastal regions. Clouds of ash darkened the sky as rivers of magma started massive wildfires.
So basically, as I said with the cosmic joke before, it was even like a cosmic double joke because the asteroid came and finished the job. If both of these theories, of course, working in tandem with one another, which I suppose they are.
Eradicating many local ecosystems and paving the continent with dead dinosaurs. Still at this point, it all looked like a local catastrophe, one of many that have hit our planet over its billions of years of history.
Sure.
Had it stopped here, there might still be dinosaurs today. But the nightmare hadn't even begun yet. The beast turns furious. The Deccan Traps would just not stop spewing lava. And so, after hundreds of thousands of years of never-ending volcanic emissions, the catastrophe became global. First, the planet experienced a wave of heating, with oceans getting at least 2 degrees Celsius hotter in just 100,000 years. Which
That's when it gets bad. The plankton is dying.
That leaves ecosystems a chance to adapt. But then, nature would pull a cruel prank. Some of the gases of the Deccan Traps heated the planet up, while others cooled it down. But the mix was uneven, so after the initial warming, a period of cooling followed, massively stressing the ecosystems that barely managed to adapt to the hotter temperatures.
Yeah, and that's one of the big problems, because while we are observing some of the fossils of dinosaurs and determining what the species thrived off of, to my understanding, there is not an actual true consensus of whether they were cold-blooded like reptiles or warm-blooded like mammals. So the adaptability was kind of somewhere in the middle, at least, or obviously they could have had different for each species. And that becomes a problem, right? When you cannot adapt quickly enough. And that's also putting a point to the argument that a lot of people who are denying climate change always make, like, oh, this is naturally occurring. The volcanoes are spewing ash all the way to the atmosphere all the time. But problem is that exactly we don't have the time to adapt to it, and that is the thing that's ruining our species. The oceans, once the oceans are attacked, everything is fucked. That's why there's been such a huge movement of making sure that the temperatures are not exceeding what such things as the Paris Accord has established.
At the same time, the sulfur in the atmosphere came back down as acid rain, while the CO2 was acidifying the oceans and killing the plankton, which was, and still is today, the basis of the food web in the oceans.
Yeah.
And if plankton disappears, a massive extinction is all but guaranteed.
It's a chain reaction.
But now, the grand finale was about to begin. About 50,000 years before impact, the true apocalypse came. Like a cosmic horror breaking out of its prison, the Deccan traps roared and screamed and began to spew out tens of trillions of tons of magma and even more deadly gases in an onslaught that lasted for several thousand years, rolling over ecosystems, devastating everything they reached. For a time as long as all of human civilization, this lava Armageddon brought massive wildfires. Earthquakes and tsunamis smashed and shook the continent. So much heat was released from the roaring hot interior of our planet that it might have created hypercanes, cyclones tens of kilometers wide with winds reaching almost 1,000 kilometers an hour.
Bruh. Yet still, Jupiter, Big Brother, is looking at this and being like, skill issues.
3 times more than the deadliest hurricane ever recorded by humanity. These storms were so massive and intense that they could reach tens of kilometers into the stratosphere and rip holes into the ozone layer with devastating consequences for all life now without protection from the sun's radiation.
Yeah.
And of course, where the hyperstorms occurred, devastation and death would follow. And as if all this wasn't enough, out of the guts of the earth came colossal amounts of venom. Giant clouds loaded with mercury and hydrochloric acid rolled over the planet, delivering the final blow to the remnants of a once magnificent and fertile world. As food chains crumbled and the whole world around them collapsed, some of the last dinosaurs to ever walk the earth may have died vomiting toxic foam while being bathed in acid rain. A cruel end for the members of a noble family that had ruled the world for so long. Then it just ended. The frenetic eruptions slowed down and the endless natural disasters began to fade away. But the world was changed forever.
And if only he had stopped there. That's like the lesson of this entire video. I'm laughing at this. It's like a horrible thing that happened to those poor creatures. But if only it had ended there.
The monster had left unfathomable devastation and corpses in its wake. Even the planet's ecosystems far away were severely wounded. It was the end of a whole geological era, a murder that started slowly and then turned loud and violent. And then it happened. Like a cosmic joke, on the other side of the world, a bright dot of light appeared in the sky. And an instant later, an asteroid 10 kilometers across smashed into Earth with the power of 4 billion atomic bombs. If you want to see what this was like, we made a whole video about it. If life on Earth was like a murder victim barely holding on, this was the final blow. Just too much. After the massacre on the other side of the world, the Deccan traps went on expelling tens of trillions of tons of deadly gases for another 800,000 years, making sure the devastated planet stayed covered in poison. When they eventually finished and truly went back to sleep, 75% of all species on Earth had perished. Most famously, almost all dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Except birds.
Yeah, the avian ones were very, very lucky to make it out of there.
The only dinos that are still with us today. Their stunning beauty and diversity are a shy reminder of how majestic and wonderful their larger cousins must have been. So, who was the murderer? Were the dinosaurs doomed by the traps, or would they have survived without the asteroid?
I think it's a mixture of both. And we keep on finding new things. As an example, you know how it is that our tectonic plates keep on moving? for like millimeters every single year. It's a good thing that they do that. Why? Well, because it keeps our ocean levels quite where they're supposed to be. It is theorized that at the time when this asteroid struck, the tectonic plate at a certain point just halted, and quite literally when they do that, they start sinking down, and with them goes the water levels, meaning quite literally that in some areas around the world, the aquatic life quite literally had nowhere to be. Not because the water was hitting so much that they evaporated, no, quite because the water sank down to the Earth's crust.
Was it teamwork? Well, we don't know. Scientists have been fiercely debating this question for years, but for now we have no definite answer. The timeline of events that we've shown here is based on some of the most recent reconstructions of the evolution of the Deccan traps.
Yeah.
There are other ones that paint a different picture, but right now, scientists are still fiercely arguing over this. Check our sources to learn more. So, like much of true crime, we can't end this story with an easy and satisfying resolution.
But that's also the best answer to give. You don't know, you go where the evidence is pointing you. Actually, back in uni, we had this one course on the philosophy of conveying information, wherein we actually had to practice that on a high school class and convey them something. I can't exactly remember what we decided to do. It was a certain project that we decided to cover, but the way that we ended up turning it to was in the form of a true crime, actually. Like, for example, if you go into a house, find a dead body, who are you going to point at as being the murderer? Is the butler, just because he's around there? You don't know. It's as ridiculous as pointing out to anything else, unless you have evidence that can be observed, reconstructed, or trusted beyond a reasonable doubt. Can you actually say that this is the culprit? And then, of course, come a whole thing about like fallacies that one can make, but it's a nice way of tackling an issue like that.
Time has the nasty habit of erasing evidence, so maybe we'll never really know. But there is something else hidden in the dust, something truly terrifying. As we learn more and more about the past, we found that at least 4 of the 5 big mass extinctions happened at the same time as the Earth was furiously spewing gargantuan amounts of magma. The monster that might have killed the dinosaurs seems to be a serial killer. The worst massacre ever, the Permian mass extinction 250 million years ago, was caused by the Siberian traps, a hellish flood of lava that killed 95% of all the species on Earth, almost bringing life to its knees. Until recently, many scientists thought that this was an outlier, but new evidence suggests it may have been the rule. Other big mass extinctions happened when the monster awoke from its sleep, and the longer and more violently it rampaged, the more slaughter we can see in the fossil record. So maybe the dinosaurs were not massacred by a casual murderer from outer space, but by a serial killer hiding beneath our feet. Do you need to worry about all of this?
Yeah, not
Definitely
yet.
not. While the monster is real, it's amazingly slow and currently very sleepy. If it were about to awaken again, scientists monitoring the Earth's interior would get a warning really early, maybe even millions of years in advance. Time enough to prepare and move out of the way. Enough about mysteries of the past and onto puzzles in the present. We're testing out this project crate from our sponsor KiwiCo today. They offer fun crates for kids on topics like science, mechanics, biology, and even things like ice cream making and, yes, dinosaurs too.
I gifted this to a cousin. That's nice.
Each one is like a little adventure in a box that lands on your doorstep, either individually or as a subscription. And each box comes with all of the supplies you need along with kid-friendly instructions to help guide the way.
That was yet another great video from Kuskasat, and I always love the depictions there. I think I spotted both a Spirited Away Easter egg there, and also I think around there at the 5-minute mark. Let me see. Here.
Several thousand years, rolling over
Yep. I don't know if they do this intentionally. Sometimes they're hinting to, like, just like I said, with Pokemons, with the fossils, they're creating an actual Dino's Charizard. I don't know, that's just my guess. But guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. As always, please do make sure to go and like and perhaps also subscribe to Kurz to get more of these awesome animations. And of course, if you like this one, don't forget to hit that like button. And I wish you all to have a wonderful day. Stay learning, stay chilling, and I see you guys in the next one. Bye.